Welcome, and in this video I build a Nissan RB32. It was the hardest engine I've ever had to build. There were so many problems I had to overcome, but we managed to get there and the end results are pretty stout. Very efficient engine, and I am super happy with the end result. But in this video we're building the engine. Next video will be on the dyno. The video after that will be out on the road testing and possibly maybe an OG battle. So keep watching and enjoy the video with me. Welcome to the SRD Tuning YouTube channel. So what a year it's been, 2023. It has been a mega year. We've been to Goodwood Festival of Speed, we've had cars competing in OG battles, but behind me 2024 is going to be even better. This is a very special engine we're going to be building next year. It is an RB32. Now for you guys, we don't normally build RBs that watch the channel, we're normally 2Js, but you know, getting more and more inquiries to build RBs and Nissans, we thought, let's jump on that bandwagon and start building some RBs. Obviously with PRP, massive help, Nitto and Carrillo and CP, all the big players in the RB world, but Herman at PRP is doing a fantastic job making sure the RB platform is pushed not only to its limits, but beyond the limits that you'll ever see any RBs pushed to. So they are now doing their own cast cylinder heads, their cast iron cylinder blocks as well, with many increases in deck thickness, bore thickness, main studs, the length of the main studs, the length of the head studs. So they're doing a great job. So we thought let's kind of do some work with them as well. And behind me we have got some of the nicest RB stuff that you can possibly buy as a stock block and a stock cylinder head. But we're going to be pushing this one to about 1,000 wheel horsepower. Well, a nice reliable 1,000 wheel horsepower with this car, and these are the components that we're going to use. So we're going to use a 4340 nitrided 3.2 version 2 wide journal bearing forged crankshaft in this engine. It's also going to be having its PRP cast iron girdle on the bottom of the engine as well, so that's going to stiffen all the bottom of the engine up and stop any block flex and stuff, so the tunnel will remain parallel throughout the cycle of the engine, hot, cold, launching the car. Not only that, we're going to be using some Kelford cams, Kelford springs, Kelford valve guides, we've got some Viton valve stem seals, we've got DLC coated buckets for this engine as well. I am personally doing all the porting of the cylinder head. We've got our oversized valves on going into the cylinder head. We've got one-piece stainless tulip valve, exhaust valves for it. And I've also got a really nice DLC coated intake valve with a wasted stem. We've got our remote oil filter housing, we have our billet PRP oil pump, and we've machined the crankshaft to have its spline drive on the front with a 3-foul interference fit. We're using Nitto forged I-beam rods with the Carrillo CP pistons. So we've got an array of parts here for this engine. There's probably £20,000 behind me on this bench of just RB parts, and it is amazing to look at, and it's great to be involved with this project. So I'm looking forward to the beginning of next year where I can start assembling this engine. I've done most of the prep work on all the block and all the bits, and partner up with people to get all the parts here ready to build this engine. I love seeing all of these parts laid out. There is loads. These are cylinder head and our inlet and exhaust valve, CP pistons and our Kelford cams, loads of PRP parts, loads of ARP parts. I mean, what else can you put together an engine with apart from all the best parts? New flywheel bolts and our Kelford DLC coated shimless buckets with our Kelford beehive springs and retainers and valve guides, more ARP nuts and bolts, Supertech valve locks, our PRP girdle and brace, and yeah, these valves are lovely for this cylinder head, and the springs work so well so far. And our King bearings and our 1/2 inch main studs and head studs, and this is the block ready to go to machining. We're back at it again. I mean, this RB32 engine is a dick. There's no two ways about it. Building an RB32 to do 1500 horsepower compared to a 2J, they're a dick. That's the only words that I can describe it. The billet brace, man, I mean, a massive ball ache. So over here is all of the billet brace and stuff, and yeah, it's been hard work doing this billet brace. Finally though, I think we're almost there. So first things first, I've got to do the block, haven't I? So it is all prepped. I have prepped it all. It's done. Everything's back from zinc plating, and then yeah, block painted, prepped, all the threads cleaned, clean, and yeah, it's done. So now I can assemble, but I've got a few issues still. So I'm going to put the crank in first, and I'm going to do the oil pump alignment, and I need to do the rear seal. So let's smash it and let's do some engine building. So I've got my engine assembly lubricant, little dobs on the bearings, crankshafts all clean. Pretty heavy, these crankshafts, these 3.2 Nitto cranks. Drop it in there without destroying anything. Done and dusted, that is in. One crankshaft in. Well, one crankshaft placed in the block anyway. Next thing I need to do, I need to go over to the machine shop, and I just need to polish the inside of this. This is the PRP oil ring, to make sure that you align the oil pump correctly onto the crankshaft. And to me, it's just a snag bit tight. I mean, it does go on. I'm just going to put this on there like that and see where my high spots are. That actually looks like an anodizing imperfection, that. That's why it's tight. Anyway, I'll be back in a bit. So I'm back from the machine shop, and my collar's been done. So all what I've done is polish the inside of the collar to make sure it slips over the end of the crankshaft. So I've had the crankshaft ground and also a sleeve slid over it for the oil pump. So now I know that that slides over. Lovely, jubbly. And I've got the oil pump here. The idea is we need to make sure that the tunnel is bored correctly in the block. Any deviation on X and Y will throw the oil pump off. So all what you do from PRP is slide the oil pump over and then put the collar on, and then make sure it goes on the dowels. It did. So we know our tunnel bore is parallel and in X and Y is in the same place. And nice bits of kit, this oil pump. Much better than the two flats on the end of the crankshaft, in my opinion. This is very much like a 2J. So yeah, that all looks good. This all looks good. It's all lovely and clean. But it's M6. So this is where the 30 years experience comes in. How tight do you do them? The quarter drive, you shouldn't be able to do any damage, but you can probably still strip threads. One oil pump on, one collar out. So behind me, I've got all of my pistons and rods and rings and gudgeon pin all laid out. And the first thing to do is to drop all the rings in the bores and measure their clearances, so you know where you're going to start with. But yeah, it's looking really good behind me with everything all laid out and all labelled number 1 to number 6. Anyway, I'm going to carry on doing piston ring gaps. I think it's kind of fairly boring for people to watch me doing ring gaps, but it's got to be done. It's one of them things that has to be done. You can't just put a piston in a bore, not do the ring gaps, because it's likely to fail. So I made this tool on the lathe, and it just basically gets the ring in the correct position and stops the ring from rocking in the bore. So I know that all my rings are going to be in the same place, which is about an inch down the bore. So might as well start at number 1 and put them all in. Start with the top ring, and I've got my whiteboard marker as well. The rings are labelled with an N on the top of it, and that is always the top. What do we reckon these are going to be? Not actually sure. First time using the Nitto piston. Renowned to be very, very good, so fingers crossed they'll be good in this engine. They look pretty tight though. I'm going to say 1/8 thou. That is what I'm going to say these look like. Maybe tighter. And now we can just drop this in. Don't like using a piston and dropping it in the bore. Prefer my little gadget. Feeler gauges. Let's have a look at these. Oh, Jesus, that is tight. I'm going to start with 8 thou. 8 thousandths. It's close, very close. If you were to run this engine at 11 thou top ring, 100% it will pinch the ring will get hot, it will pinch, and it will just rip out all the material from the bore. Also, don't twist the ring in the bore and then pull it up, pull the ring up parallel, and then it won't scuff the sides of the bore. Now, the second oil control scraper ring. You do this ring slightly larger to stop ring flutter. This is a hook style ring, so it actually scrapes the bore, oil off the bore on its way down. So it's got like a little hook to do that. It's also a cast iron style ring as well. So I have now got all of my measured ring gaps. Now I need to gap all the rings. American made ring grinder. One, two. It's easy, put it in, slide it down, lock it up. And deburr the ring. One Nitto piston and Nitto rod. Now, my top tips. So, we've got a couple of things to think about. We've got cutouts for valves on the top. We also have a direction on the rod, and that's dictated by this tiny little hole just there, and you can see it on the back of the bearing in there, or the back of the rod in there. Right, so my top tips are circlips. Whatever you do, don't put them sideways. Put the gap at the top or the bottom, but never left or right. And I'll see if I can get that in shot there somewhere. That is because 9,000 RPM whipping up and down the bore, what's the chances of having that clip from its own weight and its own mass, from the acceleration, deacceleration, to actually close up and pop out? So if it's at top and bottom, it can't do that. So that's one of my top tips. Top tip for valve reliefs: 98% of engines, the inlet valve is bigger than the exhaust valve, so the cutouts, which are larger, should be on the inlet side and the smaller ones on the exhaust side. Another top tip. And what else? Yeah, so the rods, I would normally, on manually anyway, the graphics on the rod is facing the front of the engine, and on this one it's actually on the back of the engine. And the reason for that is for that tiny little hole that is at the rod actually squirts oil out through the bearing and the rod and lubricates the thrust side of the engine. So if we've got an engine going clockwise and it's going round and up and down and round, when the rod rocks over its TDC point, the piston actually jacks the opposite way. So it wouldn't jack that way, it actually jacks the opposite way. So we know when it goes bang and goes down on its compression, when it goes bang on its power stroke, all the forces gets jacked up on this side of the piston. So that is why I've got my tiny little oil squirter on that side of the bore. Now that's done and the rods are all assembled, these have all been balanced. So I've done end-to-end weighting, and I've also done piston weight, and my entire rotating assembly for any engine that I build is, you ready for it, plus and minus 1 gram. And I am currently at 0.16 grams on the front of the crank and 0.20 grams at the back of the crank, and then all of my rods and pistons and the rotating assembly and everything is plus and minus less than 1 gram. So the entire rotating assembly, all the rods, all the pistons and everything was within 1 gram. Now I balance all of my engines. Every single engine gets balanced. It has the crankshaft balance, it has the flywheel balanced, it has the front pulleys balanced, it has everything all balanced, and I see it as 3 horsepower. It's free. If you've got an engine that is shaking because it's out of balance, it's sapping power. So if the better balance you get, the more horsepower you'll get. And that's an any given engine, doesn't matter what engine it is. If you get it all balanced, you're going to pick up some horsepower because it's not going to be shaking. So yeah, they're my top tips. Anyway, I'm going to put rings on this, and I'm going to put rings staggered. So I normally like 1 gap here, 1 gap here, 1 gap here, and 1 gap there. So they're all staggered around the piston. Now I like to do top ring at the front of the engine and second scraper ring at the back of the engine, and then the oil control rings can be either or what side. So yeah, put rings on them all now, and then I can put them all in the bore. So this engine's actually going together slowly. It's been 7 months I've been doing this engine. Machine shop and back and forth and crank grinding and back and forth and measuring and checking and balancing, and I don't think I'm ever going to do another one of these RB engines, not these RB32 anyway. And if If I do decide to do one, you're going to be paying a lot of money, because the amount of hours that it's taken to get this to where it is, yeah, it's a lot of money anyway, but it would have to be a lot more money. So anyway, I'm going to crack on and put rings on. So here I have my piston ring compressor. It is an ARP product. It's 86.5. It has a slight taper, so when you're putting all the rods and pistons and stuff in, you don't have to squeeze anything up. It's perfect size. Now for me, I will use a mineral oil for all the rings, and you just want to oil the control ring. It's the only one you got to do. Just get the oil in there all the way around. Like that. Skirts. Drop it in. Make sure it drops down. I've already installed the bearing into the rod, and on that I use a Miller's Competition engine assembly lubricant. Stops it from dripping everywhere. And then we need to make sure we install it correctly. Drop them in. Give it a wiggle and push down with your thumbs. You can't get easier than that. That is the easiest thing. And then just got to push it down. And there we go. That is my number 1 and number 6 installed. I'll flip it over. Double check everything. And just oil a little dab of the engine assembly lubricant on the crank pins. They go tang to tang, so this is number 1, that is number 6, tang is towards me. Now I'm just going to nip these up with the gun, and then I'm going to take them back out and molly coat them. One. These are an ARP 625 Plus custom made 11/16 rod bolt. So make sure it's an end float there as well to start off with. And then it will go to the next 2 pins and repeat the process 6 times. Making sure the ring packs float around like they should. Whew. This engine's taking it out of me, turning me grey. I've still got some more bolts to do on the pan. All the countersunk ones. You have to machine every single one down. 20 countersunk. Alright, they're all nipped up now. I'll just rotate it by hand. That feels good. Good. Just checking all my clearances. You have to clearance the block as well. That all looks spot on. Man, that engine was a pain to build. That engine I assembled 4 times dry, just to check everything, and we had so many problems, man. Like the girdle from PRP was like a banana. If you put it on a flat surface, it rocked really bad. Clearancing on the crankshaft, just, yeah, I mean, it was a massive ball ache, and
it took about 80 hours to assemble the engine, and I then had to remove the girdle right at the end after the engine was fully built, all siliconed, all done. I had to take the girdle back off again and put it in the CNC machine and machine all of the pocket for the strainer and the oil pickup, because they were in a different place. No one told me that, I wasn't aware, and yeah, what a pain though. But it's done and it's assembled, and so far so good. So thank you very much for watching, and if you like the video, hit that like and subscribe button. Maybe share it with some of your friends that like the sound of the RB and the performance of the RB stuff. We were lucky enough to have Andrew Hopkins from Motive Video come down when the engine was assembled and give his blessing as well. So that is really cool, and yeah, we're looking forward to pushing the limits on this engine, and hopefully we don't go too far. We keep it just in the window where it's happy. But thank you very much, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.